And now, it's the Finding Your Spine podcast with host Chase Spears.
Welcome back to the Finding Your Spine podcast, where we call you to live and lead boldly in the truth. Today we have Brian Westbrook with us here. Brian is the founder and president of Coalition Life in St. Louis, Missouri, a ministry that helps to save the unborn. And I'm really excited to talk about that mission and the fact that he has stayed with it, and him and his team stay with it through the fight that it has been our entire lives, and we know it will be, but it's a righteous one. And Brian, a lot of stuff to tell about your story that we'll jump into in the next little bit, but man, I'm just excited you're here. Thanks so much for making the time.
Well, I'm excited to be on the program and excited to have this great conversation, and of course the work that you do every single day.
It's a joy, brother. So tell me a little bit about Coalition Life, what you guys do. I know this is something that's very close to my heart. Obviously, it's close to your heart as well because you've built your life around it.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Coalition Life, we started it back in 2011 as just a small little ragtag group. We threw it together, really focused on professionalizing sidewalk counseling. And so for any of the listeners who don't know, sidewalk counseling is going out to an abortion facility and actively giving that woman real, tangible help, real tangible resources. And so we started back in 2011, and I left my job at a local engineering firm to start what was then Coalition for Life St. Louis, a big long name, which is now just called Coalition Life. And so we started there and then continued to grow as a professional team. And we started in St. Louis and then in Illinois, and now over in Kansas, and then looking for places around the country to continue to grow. And then later on, we created our own pregnancy center that really focuses on those very high-risk clients who, whether we're meeting them on the sidewalks outside these abortion facilities or we're meeting them online through their cell phones, we're able to serve the highest risk clients who want that abortion now or are being pressured or forced into an abortion. Those are the people we work with on an ongoing basis, and we're excited to continue to do that.
Man, that's awesome. You said professionalized sidewalk counseling. What does that mean?
Yeah, and so without discouraging anyone who has come before us, we kind of built on the work and the excitement of the generation who had come before us. And what we wanted to do is be able to say that for that woman walking in the door or driving in there, that we could provide almost anything that they're having issues with, whether it's housing, rent payments, car payments, an abusive boyfriend, or anything like that. We wanted to be able to, first and foremost, be able to provide those tangible resources from the get-go. And that requires, doing some fundraising and having good donor relations so that we can provide those immediate services for them. And then secondarily, it's about meeting them where they're at. And so what we did actually to professionalize it is we've removed most of the signage, most of the language that kind of says, hey, here we're the pro-life movement and we don't like abortion, right? And that's most pro-life signs, right? We go out and we hold a sign, whether it's in a march or at an abortion facility, something like that. What we did is we removed most of that signage and instead said, how can I help her first? If I can serve her right in front of that abortion facility and just ask her a handful of simple questions, then that's a really first step to do that. And then lastly, we record every single conversation for legal purposes, but also for training purposes. And so if we had a really difficult conversation and she still went in for an abortion, we can go back and rewind the tape and talk to our sidewalk counselors team and say, what could we have done differently? What could you have done differently to be able to ultimately save the most amount of lives?
And you were telling me when we talked a few days ago, it's way up there, the number of lives that you guys have actually been able to save.
Yes, so we've seen more than 4,800 turnarounds outside of the abortion facilities that we've been there at, and that's just the Sidewalk counseling side of the thing. Through our pregnancy center, we serve about 1,000 clients per year. Not every single one of them is ultimately pregnant. We do pregnancy testing as well, but the vast majority of them are. And then of the high-risk clients through our pregnancy center, about 50% of those are ultimately going to choose life. And so that's the high risk. Now, the medium and low risk clients, they almost always choose life if they just need a little extra help and some physical resources. But yeah, over the course of our 14-year history on these abortion facilities, Sidewalks, we've seen over 4,800 turnarounds.
That's got to be something that just feels absolutely amazing.
Well, I'll tell you, it's one of these things where every single day you just do the next right thing. And so, I thought at some point along the way it would be this big, huge, exciting moment. But every single day there's a new challenge. And so, one day there's a guy with a trombone playing it in your face. The next day it's 0 degrees out and you're trying to figure out how to get your supplies out there or through the mud or through the snow, and of course always continuously recruiting and fundraising. So every once in a while we'll slow down and pause and say, wait, wow, I can't believe we just had 10 turnarounds this week, and so that's kind of fun to be able to pause every once in a while. But I'll tell you, the work is ever going. And ever changing, and so every once in a while, it's we pause and slow down and say, "Wow, I can't believe we've done all of that."
So, is this your plan vocationally? Did a young Brian going to high school, going to college, starting a family, or is this where you always planned on actually spending your life and ministering?
Well, so the short answer is, of course, no. No one ever wakes up or grows up and says they want to have an abortion, and I don't think anyone ever grows up and says, "Hey, I want to talk about abortion every single day." But fortunately or unfortunately, that's the way things have turned out for me, and our amazing team. So we have 50 plus people on our staff, not to mention the 20,000 plus volunteers and supporters who make this work possible every single day. But no, I certainly didn't want to do this work. In fact, when I was in high school, I wanted to be an electrician because I didn't like school. I didn't think it was all that entertaining or really all that fun, frankly, somewhat boring. And I really liked electricity. I really, really thought it was really cool to understand how all the electronics work. And I'll tell you, my Dad probably wasn't all that excited about when I would, disassemble a lot of his electronics and his, certain things. But over the course of years, I was excited about electronics, and I went to a local tech school, left that, and worked for an engineering firm doing process control and automation and electrical design for this engineering firm. And we did that almost 7 years. Learned a heck of a lot in how databases work, how electronics work, and how coding works. And so I took all of that and applied it to the nonprofit and pro-life sphere, and it's been a blast ever since.
So what was that turning point for you? I mean, you're into electronics, and you've got this education, you've got this background, and I imagine, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I imagine you probably had in your mind kind of an idea of where that was all going, what direction that path was going to lead down. What was the turning point? I mean, it's drastic to jump from that into nonprofit pro-life ministry, to say the least, I think.
Well, so I'll tell you, I was definitively growing my career. We had some really high-profile clients of ours. A lot of the products most of the products you see in the supermarket, we were able to do a lot of the process control and automation behind all of those, and so it was really cool to be asked to be on some of these high-profile projects for some of these very common products you might have in your refrigerator or in the supermarket. And so really it was a matter of a God thing. And so my son was born about 17 years ago. And 4 weeks after he was born, I received a phone call on my phone from my wife who says that he stopped breathing. Just those 3 words, he stopped breathing. And those 3 words changed my life forever. Because, I was a brand new father, young. These days, people are waiting until their late 20s, even into their 30s, to have their first child. But we were in our early 20s having our first child. And, my career was, taking off and it was doing great. And sure enough, he gets sick with RSV and pneumonia. And he stops breathing at home. And I knew he wasn't doing so well, of course. But I never thought at some point along the way that I would end up in the emergency room with my son and my wife. And the first question the ER doctor asked me is, she said, well, which hospital would you like your son airlifted to? Cardinal Glennon or St. Louis Children's? And my look on my face was like, And so we ended up in Cardinal Glennon for 7 days, and Ethan was in ICU for 7 straight days. And on that 7th day, I was completely exhausted. My wife was just completely wiped out. And so we went down to the little prayer chapel they have there on the first floor. And I, in the middle of the night, I throw my arms up and I say, God, take care of my little boy and I'll rededicate my life to you. And I didn't really realize what I was asking because the next morning, his chest x-rays come back clean. 3 days later, we take him home, and my life has not been the same ever since, because generally God gets the better half of that bargain. So that's kind of the starting point, and there was more after that, but that was a starting point of really seeking God's will for my life, for our family, and ultimately to be able to help the most innocent among us, the littlest, and that's the preborn child.
Amen to that. And how's your son doing these days?
Well, he's driving. I've got him in college classes, even though he's finishing out his last year in high school. So I used to make jokes and say he's just a pain in the butt, but I'll tell you, he has been doing really, really well, and I'm really, really proud of him. From a health perspective, he's doing wonderfully, and we are really blessed to have him. And then we have 7 more. So we restarted just these last years. And so we've got 7 or 8 total, and our youngest is now 7 months. So it's been quite the journey, that's for sure.
Man, what a blessing. You make me feel like a lightweight at 5.
Well, I'll tell you, it is not a competition, and I'll tell you, our wives would probably agree that having more children is not a competition.
Yeah, I think that's probably a safe bet. So that moment in the chapel, that was a turning point in your life. What were the next few steps that led you to completely pivot away from engineering is a pretty safe bet these days, into building this out of nowhere, out of nothing, but following what you knew was a call on your heart from the Lord to protect the unborn?
Yeah. Well, so I'll tell you, most of my classmates that I went to college with, most of them are still working the same job they had coming straight out of college. I'll tell you this work that we did, it was so specialized, so high level that it's something you don't leave, right? It's something that you're excited to continue to do. And my boss, he, not to skip too many steps, but my boss, when I quit, he's like, this is one of the stupidest decisions you're making. And I'll tell you, a lot of people around me who cared for me also really questioned my motives and questioned whether it's good to take care of a family by just jumping out. And so it really started immediately after that. My wife and I really started looking, how can we give back? So we made this commitment. I made this commitment as a spiritual leader of our family that we would have to give back. And if I'm going to make this commitment, that it's really important that we start searching. And so along that same time frame, we had learned that my mother-in-law had an abortion back in 1973. She had kept secret for a long time and went through a program called Project Rachel. And for anyone who has gone through an abortion, know that there is hope and healing through Project Rachel, through a group called Project Joseph, or even a group called Support After Abortion. There is hope and healing for each and every single one of you after an abortion. And so she was able to tell her story openly now instead of hiding it for so many years. And so she told us this story, and I said, well, how do you get involved? And she says, well, you have to go to the abortion facility. I said, no, I'm sure there's some other ways to get involved. Where should I write a check? Or what political candidate should I get involved with? And so it took me many years, not many months, to really figure out that maybe I'm being called to go out to the abortion facility. And so we went out on a Saturday afternoon. My wife was trying to convince me to go, and I said, well, how about a big, huge breakfast? And so we had this big breakfast, and we were, kind of pushing it off until finally we went out on a Saturday afternoon. And this was really where it really struck me, because we didn't have signs or literature. We didn't have anything to hold. And we just saw that everyone who was passing by was, either giving us a weird look or telling us we're number one with the wrong finger or yelling and screaming at us. And I'm like, well, we're just saying some prayers here. And I think it really became evident as we watched as the young ladies left in tears. So there was just one moment where there was a probably young teenager, 14, 15 or so, and there was a white SUV pulled into the parking lot. This was in St. Louis, Missouri, at the Planned Parenthood. And she was sitting at the top of the steps crying. The SUV pulls up to the bottom of the steps, and no one gets out to help her. Supposedly, she had just had an abortion. I don't know for sure, but it appeared so, because she looked like all the other girls who were coming out with, holding their stomachs or crying or just upset about the whole thing. And so she's sitting at the top of these steps and stumbles down to this larger SUV vehicle, and they pull around and stop right in front of us, and she just keeps crying. And so that moment in time, I said, well, we need to do something specifically for her. What can we do for her? And that's where we started a prayer vigil here in St. Louis in 2009. Continued to bring out people for 2.5 years until we had 2,500 people joining us on an ongoing basis for this big prayer vigil we were holding twice a year. And I was ready to give up, just throw in the towel. It's great, but I've got this engineering firm I'm working for. There's a lot that needs to still happen. We're raising kids, and we kind of wanted to give this whole project to someone else. And so that's when I met with a good friend of mine, Chuck Raymond, to kind of figure out how to give this project to someone else who was more qualified, knew something about nonprofits, knew something about the pro-life movement, generally speaking. And I'm sitting on his dining room floor, and I said, Chuck, I got this crazy idea. What if I quit my job and start a nonprofit from scratch, and I just take it over, and we collectively pull this all together and have some fun with it. And he was the first one to tell me that was a really stupid idea. And a lot of people told me, through the next couple of months how stupid that idea was. But I just kept coming back to that. Like, I really couldn't shake from myself the convictions that someone had to do this, and we had to do it right, because I made a commitment first with my son and then with this young lady, that we had to do something to ultimately end abortion and serve God. So it wasn't long after, and in November of 2011, we launched what was then called Coalition for Life St. Louis.
Wow. How was your wife about this?
Well, actually, she was really excited. We started this together as a ministry that we built from the ground up together. So the child that was aborted in 1973 would have been her brother or sister, but her mother has named this child Hector, and for her it was very personal. Like, this could have been my older brother, and so it was very personal for her that she had lost a sibling early on. Before she was even born, she had already lost a sibling, so it was very personal to her. And also, I mean, on a practical perspective, when you're in high demand in the engineering field, you fly all around the country. And she also wanted me home, which is kind of interesting as we continue to expand around the country, first in Missouri, Kansas, and Illinois, but other places are very interested in our model, and to be able to help in all these places around the country, that the travel is actually starting to continue to increase. But it was so fun. So we kept it very secret until we launched in November, behind the scenes, and a lot of people knew there was going to be this big pro-life announcement, but they didn't know quite what it was. And so we went back after a very, very difficult event and banquet, before we even opened the envelopes, and we pumped on some music, started dancing in our living room. And our little kids looked at us crazy, but it was exciting. It's still exciting, but I'll tell you, my wife is doing a lot of homeschooling these days. Taking care of 8 kids is quite the job, and she is a hero for doing that. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for my wife doing the same thing. It's such a blessing to be able to have that option and have the kids at home. I love it.
Yeah.
The pro-life message is so natural to me. I don't know how anyone gets to any other conclusion but that life is precious, life is created by God, life must be defended. We live in a world where that conviction is not shared, and I know you guys faced a lot of hostility out there. It's not necessarily people greeting you and understanding, well, we want people to have choices and you're just another choice. I don't think that's the way it is.
No, I mean, so when we originally went down to Carbondale, Illinois, so if you kind of look at, to illustrate for your listeners, so St. Louis is kind of the middle of Missouri, but definitely southern Illinois. If you go even further south, one of the largest cities in southern Illinois is Carbondale. And after the Dobbs decision, many of the southern states, including Missouri, had restricted abortion all the way, many times in all gestational ages, all the way till the heartbeat or even earlier. And so Missouri signed a trigger law into effect, but a lot of other states like Tennessee, Illinois, Tennessee, Louisiana, Indiana, but also Texas. And so many of these southern states that all surround Illinois had, restricted abortions in quite a restrictive way, if you will. But what happens is that pushed many of the abortion facilities out of the states. And so very, very quickly, Carbondale became the focus of the abortion industry. And within a year, they built 3 different abortion facilities in Carbondale. So this is about a 2-hour drive from St. Louis. And my phone starts ringing off the hook. My email starts blowing up from people down in Carbondale and also those over in Illinois who said, we need to do something. What are we going to do down in Carbondale? And I said, we got plenty of work here in St. Louis. I'm not sure I want to take on another project in Carbondale. But they're persistent. And so we were very excited to be able to work with those pro-lifers on the ground in Carbondale. And one of the very first things that the city of Carbondale did is they passed this thing called a bubble zone. And so the bubble zone is a way of hostility against our freedom of speech, and it creates this zone that if I approach someone within 8 feet, that I might be thrown in prison for 90 days or fined or given all these different variety of penalties. And so that was a huge fight that we had over the course of the last several years. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the day before, like the evening before, the final paperwork was due for the Supreme Court. The city of Carbondale held an emergency 4-minute meeting in the basement of City Hall and rescinded the bubble zone ordinance. And of course, then they filed their paperwork the next morning saying it was a moot case, that is, and that the Supreme Court shouldn't take the case and should throw it out. And so, of course, unfortunately, that's what the Supreme Court did, even though we got a great dissenting opinion in Coalition Life versus City of Carbondale from Justice Thomas, who said that they should have taken the case anyways, that it's not a moot point. It is something that will continue to be a threat. Not to mention those people who throw food at us and leftover soda drinks, and those who continue to walk by to challenge us on a daily basis. That happens both to us, but also anyone around the country who stands for life. That's a badge of honor that we get to hold. Not to mention the snow days on an ongoing basis. We have every single one of our staff members is issued a snow pants, and it becomes these things we hold very dear in the wintertime, of course.
Yeah, I bet. You mentioned to me once we were talking about even having one of your workers driven into.
Yeah, so one of our team members, unfortunately, the abortionist drives out. This was in Fairview Heights, Illinois. And so my team member was, do what they always do. They smile and wave. They, with a big, beautiful, amazing smile. They're excited to see whether they're driving in or driving out. We're just excited to see people. And it's that joy that really is a lot of the hard work, is being joyful. And so one of these cars was coming out, and Brian, one of our team members, steps out, smiles, waves, and the car comes right up to his legs. There's this big, huge driveway, right? He could just move over about a foot. It would be just fine, but he drives right up to his legs, honks his horn, and Brian throws his arms up. Oh my gosh! Oh no! But unfortunately, the edge of the driveway lines up with one of these sewer ditches, if you know one of these sewer ditches. And so he couldn't back up anymore. And so instead of backing the car up and driving around my team member, instead he just pushes right through, knocks him into that sewer ditch. And then the abortionist, we come to find out later, this is the abortionist, then at this point backs up, hits the median, is very shooken that he just hit someone, and then he calls 911. And the police officer comes out and unfortunately doesn't write any tickets, no slap on the hand, no nothing, and unfortunately the abortionist goes away scot-free for hitting my team member into the ditch. Of course, he had some medical bills. Of course, we covered those. But I think it's really important to know that whether it's being pushed into a ditch or whether it was in Overland Park, Kansas, where one of our volunteers, first day on the job, one of our volunteers was defending one of our smaller sidewalk counselors. He puts his arm out. He says, "Hey, lay off her," right? One of these things. And the protester runs into his arm. And then as a result, the police officer arrests my brand new volunteer, arrests him, takes him in, books him in to the precinct, and then eventually they let him go. And eventually through the great work of our dear friends, the Thomas More Society, we were able to get that thrown out of court. And so these are just a couple of the stories. We probably have hundreds of these types of stories. But it's certainly a battle out there, but it's worth it. It's worth it when we see these moms bring these little babies in, right? It's when we get to hold these little babies in our arms who have otherwise would have been driven into that abortion facility and, basically cut apart limb from limb. I'll tell you, it is worth it when we get to hold these little babies in our arms. And so that's why we started Coalition Life, and that's why we continue to do the work every single day.
I can't even imagine. I mean, do a lot of mothers do that? Come in afterwards and let you see the fruit of your labor?
100%. So that's kind of the beauty of running a pregnancy center as well, in that when we're doing the work on the ground, we then continue the work day after day after day and week after week, and until basically she has to leave us. We will continue to help her, work with her, whether it's, again, car payments, rent payments, getting her out of an abusive situation. There's just so many different variety of scenarios, but it's generally the through line is that they just need one person to tell them that it's okay, that it's okay to have this baby. It's okay, whether it's a financial burden or stress, or whether it's a relational issue or stress, that it's okay. The baby is not the end of all of this. Even in cases of rape or incest or some of these different things, these are horrible, horrific situations. And really taking the life of the baby is not going to solve those horrible, horrific situations. We had a couple of clients from India. And so they were going to school in the United States, and they had a baby here, and they thought that, well, if she goes back to India pregnant, then she might actually be killed. And there was a real possibility that she might actually be killed because she had a baby out of wedlock. And we said, no, it's okay, it's fine. We can walk through this process with you. And so, as we continue to walk with them, they, after the baby's born, they bring them back in, and we take professional photos with them as well. We do that completely free of charge for them as well. And so it's just this fun, exciting time that we get to share with them. But the work is not done after the baby is born. We continue to work with them as time goes on, because as you know, that babies are a lot of work. And so we're glad to be able to continue to help them even after the baby is born.
I want to shift gears here a little bit, and you alluded to it earlier, but let's talk about Dobbs. And I know I live on the Kansas side of the line, and just tragically, Kansas has become an abortion destination. We went, seems from a national fight for life to now state by state. What are you seeing? And from what I've been told, the numbers are showing that the number of abortions in the U.S. has actually gone up since Dobbs. And how do we get after that?
Yeah, so the Dobbs decision actually, I think, is a very, very good thing for the pro-life movement. What I think might have, so the thing is, a lot of time frames are all in alignment with each other. And so we could very much talk about, well, the number of abortions are going up because of Dobbs. I don't think that's the case at all. That's not from my research, from those that I'm talking to. The Dobbs decision is very good for our country. What is not good for our country is chemical abortion mailed through the mail. So the previous administration during COVID had allowed that abortion pills, who are very, very dangerous, right? So an abortion pill that you take at home on the toilet and then dispel a dead child into the toilet, that's a dangerous situation because not only do the pills create lots of cramping, but they also create a sense of hemorrhaging that can be very, very dangerous. And so what happens is that they are ordering these pills online without being seen, without an ultrasound. And an ultrasound is required. It ought to be required, and it was prior to the Biden administration, prior to COVID, that it was required to be able to have an ultrasound. You had to have 2 visits. And the reason for this is because of ectopic pregnancies. So if the embryo implants inside the fallopian tubes or even outside the uterus, that could be considered an ectopic pregnancy, which is very, very dangerous for the mother, and of course, very, very likely that it's deadly for the child as well. And so you should be rushed to the emergency room the moment you have an ultrasound that is suspect for an ectopic pregnancy, because it can go very bad very quickly. But none of that is done with this chemical abortion. Instead, they just ship it to you, and they say, if you have any problems, go to the emergency room, but we're not worried about how far along you are or whether that this is an ectopic pregnancy. And so they're told that you might have some cramping and bleeding. Well, cramping and bleeding are signs of a likely or a potential ectopic pregnancy. And so what's happening is they'll be at home, they'll have a heavy, heavy bleeding, heavy cramping, and heavy level of hemorrhaging. And some of them are very much, and we saw in South Carolina that women were dying because the abortionist was giving them these drugs and sending them home and just hoping for the best. And so what is really happening about after Dobbs was COVID happened and really created this opportunity for abortionists and those even internationally with the chemical abortion. We do call upon the current FDA and the Trump administration to fix this, because they should fix this. There's no reason that you should be able to send dangerous pills throughout the mail to, however you see yourself on the pro-life space on abortion. You should not be sending prescription drugs through the U.S. mail with no oversight whatsoever.
Yeah, it's just mind-boggling to me that this stuff is allowed to go so freely. I mean, I've got to get a prescription to even get antibiotic cream at the VA.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. You can't get a tattoo without being 18 and or parents' permission or something like that. But for whatever reason, we can send these dangerous abortion pills that create hemorrhaging throughout the mail, and just hoping for the best.
I think Albert Mohler nails it when he calls it the culture of death. They built an entire industry over it, and it turns my stomach. It really, really, really does. And I'm so grateful that you're there. People like you and your team members are there to try to meet young ladies and show them that there's hope, that they don't have to embrace this dark, false reality that they've just been so surrounded with. Because I'm sure probably many of these young ladies have been told this is your only option.
Yeah, they're told this is it. This is your only option. Or, well, I'll support you no matter what. I'll tell you, this is the worst thing to tell an abortion-minded client. The 100% worst is, well, I'll support you no matter what. You're basically giving a death sentence to that child. Woman after woman will walk into our pregnancy center and they'll say, well, tell me about your boyfriend or your parents or your, very rarely, your husband. Tell me what they think. And they say, well, they'll just support me no matter what. I'll tell you, worst words that anyone can say in an abortion situation. Instead, they should say, I will love you, and we will love this child, and we will take care of this child. I'll support you no matter what, because this child is going to be beautiful and wonderful, and let's figure out how to get you into prenatal care. That's what the conversation should be like, and instead it's like, do whatever you're going to do. And in fact, our culture has told men specifically that they need to be just pushed to the sidelines because they don't matter. That they're, and so the other side, the abortion feminist, over and over and over say, look, we don't need to be equal to men. We need to be better than men. And men need to just sit on the sidelines, and it really doesn't matter. If instead there was one man or woman, but in most cases, if one man stood up and said, you know what, let's do this together, let's make this happen. It doesn't have to be the father of the child. Just a man in her life says, let's do this, then we would have no abortions in our country.
Yeah, it's amazing to me how in the conversation, the fathers are never brought up. There's never a question of what's the father think. It's almost like you're looked at sideways if you would even ask that. Like, no, this is just the mother's decision. I'm like, no. It's really kind of a dual-sided problem. We need men to step in, and we need the culture to recognize the need for men to step in at the same time.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm not sure where your listening audience is on religion or anything like that, but if you're committing, if you're calling yourself a Christian, be in your Bible every single day. Make sure that you're living your religious or Christian values. Make sure you're living them every single day. And that takes courage. That certainly takes courage to say, hey, look, I believe in Jesus Christ, that he died on the cross. And then I'm going to commit that every single day I'm going to stand as the spiritual leader of my household. And this word divorce is not even an option. I don't care if things get a little difficult. That's okay. Or a lot of difficult. I mean, with 8 kids, things can get very difficult very quickly, depending on how many kids are sick or behind on their schoolwork, or maybe they're doing great, but maybe 1 or 2 are not doing so well. And so I'll tell you, it's required of us men to today make a commitment to every single day love the women around us, love our wives, love our daughters, love our neighbors, and really stand firm and say, look, we're going to stand firm against the extreme culture of death, and do absolutely everything that we can, and we're going to put our money where our mouth is. We're going to put our time where our mouth is, instead of sitting and watching some sports or hanging out with some friends and going to a barbecue. I'll tell you, listening to great podcasts like this instead of sitting back and watching some rerun over and over again. We should be standing firm with our families and really making an impact. And I'll tell you, I've seen it. There's a huge culture shift right now. It's happening really under, really, I wouldn't say in the limelight, but a lot of people are now pulling their kids out of public school. They are homeschooling them. The homeschooling co-ops are completely overflowing, at least in the St. Louis area. But when I talk to people around the country, these homeschooling groups are popping up all over the place, because I think we have figured out that we don't want to toe the line for the government anymore. We want to be able to toe the line for Jesus Christ and to love our children no matter what, and to be able to bring up a generation that will ultimately end abortion, end this terrible assisted suicide stuff, and really bring our country back to where it belongs.
Man, I love it. I echo everything you just said. I mean, it really is an all of Christ for all of life mentality that we have got to have. And we've got to get rid of this notion as Christian men that there's the place where we're openly devoutly Christian, and then there are these so-called neutral secular places. There is no such thing as a secular neutral place. Right. Every place follows a canon. It's what canon does it follow. Man, how do you? I mean, we talked about the motivation, the mothers bringing the children in, and I mean, just what a beautiful thing. But I know it can't be easy at all times, even just in terms of logistics and finance. You're up against a well-funded, well-armed, well-defended abortion industry that even has the sympathies of a lot of law enforcement. And how do you keep it going year after year?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it really comes down to our 20,000 plus supporters, volunteers, donors. I've got people every single day will either send me an email or talk to them on the phone or in person, or I'll see them at an event. And people are saying, every single day I am praying for you. I said, every day? Yeah, every day. You're in my list of prayers. You, your wife, and then I name each one of your kids. All 8 of them? Yes, all 8 of them. So starting there with prayer and doing it not just at home, which we should pray at home, not just at church, which we should pray at church, but also in public. And going out to our public places, for example, a Coalition Life Circle is a great way to do that, and we're excited to continue to build that campaign. Also, going out publicly to public marches, whether it's Washington, D.C. or your local march. If you're in the Midwest, March on the Arch is a great way to get involved and engaged. Yet, there's also so many more. So there's local pregnancy centers. There's 3,000 to 4,000 pregnancy centers out there in the nation. They need, checks being written. Every single one of them are requiring the help and assistance of our churches and of our own personal finances. They need that, including our very own pregnancy center here at Coalition Life, need those funds every single day. And so really the way we have seen this, very early on, a good friend of mine is a phenomenal donor of ours as well. He handed me a fairly sizable check, and he looked me in the eyes and he said, "Brian, I want you to make sure you spend this right away." I said, "Well, yeah, I plan to." He says, "No, you don't understand. Spend it now, right away." And this gentleman runs a phenomenal business, and he explained to me, he says, "Look, my job is to continue to run my business and run it really, really well so that next year I can write an even bigger check. And next year after that, I can write an even bigger check. But I want to know that because I can take this check right here and invest it into my business and write a check, but I'll probably write it to somebody else if you decide not to spend it now." And so what we have basically taken is that same kind of mentality as the Israelites wandering in the desert, because God commands the Israelites to not save up the manna for another time, for another day. He commands them to not store it up here on earth, but to store up the manna in heaven, store up our treasure in heaven. And so that's what we do here at Coalition Life, is that we continue, not in a stupid way, but in a very prudent way, continue to grow and expand. And if that client needs a payment, if that client needs some extra hours, if they need some extra help, we're going to go the extra mile to be able to serve them, knowing that God has us taken care of later this year and into 2027 and beyond. But that does require a lot of trust. So there have been several times, we'll say, 2 or 3 different times where payroll was a struggle. But I'll tell you, putting out one more email, a handful of phone calls, God will always provide. And so we're excited for that. Last thing I'll say about that is that if this is God's ministry, it will be funded. And as long as we keep Jesus Christ as the center of our ministry, it will be funded. The moment we turn our heads and we make it about us or make it about our own pride, the money starts to dry up. But when we make sure we focus on Jesus Christ, focus on our goal ahead of us, which is to save the most amount of lives, the funding continues to come, and the blessings to both us personally and our families, we continue to see those. So I would say for anyone listening here, put Jesus Christ first and the blessings will continue to come. It doesn't mean that it's hard. It's not hard. It is, but those blessings will continue to come.
Man, I so admire what you're doing there. I so admire you're not just talking about it, you're doing it. You're actually going out leading teams that are saving lives. Is there anything else that you'd like to get out there about the mission and what you'd encourage other people to do to get involved? Anything that I missed?
No, 100%. So you can learn more at coalitionlife.com and learn about our prayer vigil at coalitionlifecircle.com as well. Sign up for our email list, and we are so blessed to be able to serve. So beyond the work that you see through Coalition Life, whether it's this professional sidewalk counseling, our prayer vigils, our rallies, or of course our pregnancy center, again, there are so many amazing pregnancy centers and amazing groups around the country. Look them up. Figure out where they are, join the board of directors, volunteer for them, cut their grass, do a diaper drive, do a little fundraiser, whatever it takes, but support these local groups all around the country. It's easy to look at some of these more national groups and say, oh, I'm going to cut a check to that big group because I feel good about it. But what I see is, that those groups who are running off of one staff member or no staff members, and they really, really need our support to be able to continue to advance the mission of saving the most amount of lives. So thanks for having me on the call. If anyone wants to check us out, coalitionlife.com is a place to check us out.
You got it. Yeah. Everyone who's listening, I encourage you to go there, find out how you can support, pray for them, learn more about them. They're doing amazing work. And if you have a local pregnancy resource center or pro-life ministry in your area, get engaged with them, talk to them, love them, help them. It's a fight. I don't think this fight's going away anytime in our lifetimes, and this is where we're called. And Brian, it's just I'm honored that we're willing to spend the time, and I'm excited for what you're doing, brother. You encouraged me.
Well, thank you very much for having me on the program, and thank you to your listeners for giving us this chance to share this message.
Yeah, Brian Westbrook, ladies and gentlemen, a man who's literally standing up against the culture and industry of death. We're all called to stand somewhere, sometime. The only question is, will you? I encourage you to think on it. Coming to you from the Herzog Foundation Studios in Smithville, Missouri. Until next time, I'm Chase Spears. Thanks for listening.
Remember to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And we'll see you next time on Finding Your Spine.